Hi guys, another update on the Ducati Panigale Tamiya model kit, and I am delighted to say that it is very near to completion. I'll give you some close-up shots in just a moment. Various other bits and pieces have been added to it, and some little detail oil washers and what have you. There are a few bits still to attach, but only a few little tiny bits, and then the bodywork, which you can see is sitting here all nice and shiny and gloss coated and looking really good indeed, if I do say so myself. Quite pleased with that. So I'm just going to zoom over to the table and give you a good close-up of everything on there. Right, so in with some close-ups. Now, the additions since the last video have been the side panels that you can see on here, and a bit of an oil wash on certain components, and just little bits and pieces. It doesn't actually look like much until you start looking at all the extra little bits and bobs. The subframe's been fixed on, and I'm just going to pop that around so you can see there, if we can get this to focus. Come on now. There we go. We've got the rear light assembly, which is 3 pieces including the clear lens painted red. It's the only clear part that's painted on this bike because all of the lights are LEDs and the indicator covers are clear as a result of that. So we've got the rear number plate and the number plate hanger with the indicators on, the rear light assembly, the subframe which is attached. Let me just put this back down so I can zoom in a little bit there. The subframe which is attached with 2 pins at the bottom which you cannot see back in, that fit into the rear of the rear cylinder, and 2 screws at the top which also secure the rear of the side panels that you can see there. Up on top here there's the little cover around the handlebars that pokes forward like a pair of horns, which also houses your ignition barrel. That part fares in the top of the fairing. It basically doesn't leave any unsightly gaps, so it neatens everything. The tops of the fork tubes, as you can see, have been painted with Tamiya clear blue on the adjuster nuts there, and the lids of the brake and clutch reservoirs have been painted. The digital dash has been fitted, and that's a top view of the very minimalistic subframe assembly. And turning it over to the right, whoops, hopefully not dropping and breaking things, turning it over onto the right hand side, we can see down here on this rear hanger that the foot peg fits to has had a little wash with a dark grey oil wash. The exhaust tips inners have been painted in black because those would be in shadow. The side panel there, as you can see, has had the components picked out in different colours with some decals added, and a little bit of an oil wash on the fork lowers, as you can possibly see down there. It's probably quite hard to see, but basically just to make the slots and the gaps stand out a little bit more. I was going to do my usual thing where I added the oil in the oil window, but to be honest with this one, when all the fairing panels are on, it's completely invisible. You physically just cannot see it. That did come with a decal, but as I said, I have had problems with the decals on this kit and it just didn't want to play along with the ones that went on the wheels. I did actually try an old decal from a Honda NR kit that I found in my spares box, just out of curiosity to see if maybe my microsol had gone off, and that fitted very well. I actually fitted that onto here. That's the remnants of it that you can see there, but I put it onto this because I wanted to see if it would form to that, and it did so admirably. I've actually scraped it off now just while I was messing around with it last night, but it fitted onto there admirably. It may be not quite as good as it was when I first got the bottle, but it's certainly not gone off enough to say that it's the fault of the microsole. So I think I must have just gotten a bad batch of decals with this bike, because unless they were very flat and on an easy to conform to glossy surface such as this one right here, then they frankly didn't really want to play at all. But we'll look at that in a moment. So on the left hand side we've got the panel there with the upper components picked out in a different colour. The battery has been decaled and given a couple of coats of clear just to make it stand out that little bit more. And over here on this rear suspension and rear set hanger, again it's had a bit of a dark grey oil wash just to pick it out, to make it pop a little bit more and to make the shadows more apparent. Because there's so much metalwork of the same colour on this model, it's really hard to tell. Down here you can probably see this a little bit clearer, but the chain has had a black oil wash. It's artist oil paint and white spirit essentially. That's had a black oil wash, which is something that everybody building a motorbike kit using the kit plastic chain should do, because it really makes that detail pop out. It adds the shadows, it gives the chain a slightly sort of dirty look. What you can do is really lay it on quite thickly, let it dry, and if you don't want it to look too dirty you can just give it a brush over with the tip of a Q-tip, a cotton bud, to pick off the bulk of that and just leave it in the gaps, which gives the shadow, and it makes the chain look very realistic, as you can see there. And then the dark grey wash on the nuts of the sprocket carrier, as you can see. A little bit of a wash on the caliper on the back, and the nuts and the banjo picked out in a slightly brighter shade of silver there. So that's the model kit so far. As you can see, it's coming together really, really well. And all that's left to fit to this are the headlight and this cowl assembly that you see down here. And that fits underneath the headlight, and it's kind of like a cooling vent slot. The front calipers, which have had their banjo bolts and the fastening bolts picked out in a brighter silver, once they're dried they will be glued onto the caliper mounts at the bottom of the fork legs that you can see there. The foot pegs, these will be the very last components that are fit, simply because they're just asking to be broken off far too easily. They're little pins that slot into the little holes that you can see down there, and I can see those pinging off far too easily, so they're going to be the last bits to go on. And down here, if you can, let me just move these into under the light so you can see them a little bit better, are the hand grips, the handlebar grips, which have had some bits picked out, the bar ends and the actual bar themselves and the brake levers picked out in a metallic grey shade, just to make them stand out a little bit more. Over here we've got the ever-present on most Ducati model kits axle stand, paddock stand rather, with the pin in there. This is painted in the same shade of red as the motorbike itself, and if I get this to focus, let me just put that in my hand and try and get that to focus for you. There we go, that's a little better. You can see the decal on there, that conformed quite well to that, but it's a very simple curved glossy surface. And then we've got the wheels, which are left clear because I like the look, with just the centres painted in a metallic grey, and then the pin painted in a metallic grey, but the rest of that stand is painted in the same glossy shade of red as the motorbike. It probably doesn't come across quite as evidently on here because I'm lit under an incandescent light. What I'm going to do when I do the final video, which will be the next one with all the panels on and what have you, is include some high resolution still images in the video, hopefully in daylight, if I can actually find some daylight at this time of year, because it's a rare thing, as you probably know if you live in the UK in winter. So hopefully in daylight, and get some good images which will give a better representation of the colour. And then once those little bits and pieces are on, which won't take long, once all this is dried and sat and set and what have you, the next and final step is there's a little bit of plumbing to go with the handlebars and what have you, down to the clutch slave cylinder and the brakes and that kind of thing. The rear one's already on, but that's a fairly quick and simple job. And then the final step is going to be this lovely lot of glossy body panels and a seat and a rear seat hump that you can see there. So looking at these, we've got a seat just painted in a nice satin black, the fuel tank with the Ducati decal on there, all nice and shiny and glossy. And the best bit about all of this is this all quite literally just pops on like a snap fit model kit, essentially, requiring a couple of fastening screws here and there, but all of this just pops on and doesn't require being glued at all. It can be glued, of course, but you don't have to. And then down here we've got the mirrors which fasten onto the fairing. These will be, well, I said the foot pegs will be the last things to go on, but these and the foot pegs, or whichever one, but these are another thing that are going to ping off and be easily damaged. And these have got, as you can see there, the nice reflective metal transfers, and it's the first time I've used these on a model kit and I think they're quite marvellous. Very, very shiny. What I normally do with mirrors is paint them using alclad chrome to give them that sort of reflective silver surface, but these are far, far more realistic. They're basically highly polished little metal panels with adhesive backing, and you just pick them off with tweezers or a scalpel blade and pop them into place and give them a bit of a rub down with a Q-tip or cotton bud, as we call them in the UK. So that's where we're at. The screen is fitted in there and the little panel underneath the nose fairing, and this goes on after the light assembly over there. The rear section, these two tail pieces fit on first, followed by this piece which covers the whole back portion here and neatens that up and makes it look nice and neat. The front fender, or mudguard as we call it in the UK, is clips on with fastening into these little divots that you see there, and then everything else just sort of slots on, and the side fairings slot on with one screw to hold the tops in place. So that's where we're at. Everything's ready to go on. The next video we will see a completed model. Thank you for bearing with me so far. I know there's been a huge gap during the process of making this video, and I know a few people have been wanting to see updates, and now I've kind of gotten the mood. I'm hoping this is going to be finished before I have to go on my Christmas holidays to see my son. So hopefully I'll get that completely finished by then, and then we'll look at which model I'm going to do next. So thank you for watching.